In a post-apocalyptic St. Louis, Finch Weinberg lives in an underground shelter taking care of his dog Goodyear. He ventures out for supplies with help from a protective radiation suit and a small robot named Dewey, but doing so requires him to outrun deadly storms. In the shelter, he spends his days building a new humanoid robot. Before turning it on, Finch feeds the robot a collection of encyclopedias, dog care books, and other works to fill it with knowledge. Then he activates it and is amazed at how quickly the robot understands him and speaks. Finch asks it to list its 4 primary directives, and it begins. First directive: a robot cannot harm a human, or through inaction allow a human to be harmed. The dog barks, skeptical of the new machine, so Finch asks it to skip to the 4th directive, and it does. 4th directive: in Finch's absence, robot must protect the welfare of dog. This directive supersedes all other directives. The robot asks Finch when will he be absent, but before Finch can answer, the power goes out. So Finch leaves to repair the damaged wind turbine. While above ground, he notices a deadly storm approaching and connects his robot to a local weather station. With the new data, the robot sees 15 major storms approaching, which are set to intersect at Finch's location in the next 24 hours. This will create a superstorm lasting 40 days. Knowing they have to leave St. Louis, Finch reviews their options. North and south are filled with storms, so they are out. East has too many cities, which means people, so they'll head west. As Finch tells Goodyear the plan, his nose bleeds, reminding him of his ailment and limited time remaining. Finch quickly increases his new robot's knowledge transfer rate. Finch gives the robot arms and legs, then teaches it to walk. The robot continues to practice while Finch packs their things and they head out. In their modified RV, the new robot apologizes as it clumsily trips and hits his head on the roof. Then they start the drive. The robot notices the desolate landscapes and asks where everybody went. Finch tells him it's a long story and adds they'll be safe once they get into the mountains. They stop to search for supplies at a theater, and Finch tells his robot about what happened to the Earth. A solar flare filled the ozone layer with holes like Swiss cheese, which overheated the Earth and filled it with UV radiation. Confused, the robot looks up in search of the cheese, until Finch clarifies it was a figure of speech. In the theater, Finch finds some popcorn kernels and pops them off a piece of metal heated by the surface's overexposure to the sun. The popping amuses the robot until a massive tornado approaches. Finch quickly teaches the robot how to nail down and protect the RV. As Finch's radiation suit reports an elevated heart rate, the robot tells him to go inside for safety while he handles the rest. With the robot's handiwork and ability to learn quickly, they survive the tornado, though one of the tires is damaged. With a spare but no jack, the robot shows initiative by raising the RV himself while Finch changes the tire.
I really enjoyed being a jack,
the robot says, and Finch suggests they give him a name. The robot is excited by the idea. After giving Finch a few suggestions, including William Shakespeare and Rover, he lands on the name Jeff. The next morning, Finch is woken up by Jeff attempting to learn dog talk, but he's only managed to upset Goodyear. Finch comforts Jeff by explaining that the dog just doesn't trust him yet. That takes time. During the drive, Jeff asks for an explanation of what trust means. When Finch struggles to answer directly, he tells Jeff a story instead. At his old job, he worked with a team of people he describes as knuckleheads. When they ran into a technical issue, Finch solved it himself, and when congratulated for it, Finch made sure to say he couldn't do it without his team. But the boss knew he was lying. Really, Finch did it all himself. Jeff is confused by the story, as it shows Finch did not trust his team. Then, Finch coughs violently, and Jeff offers to drive. They stop at a diner. Finch goes inside while he leashes Goodyear to Jeff and asks them to work on trust. In the diner, Finch continues the coughing fit. Then it returns to the RV to find Goodyear growling as Jeff tries bringing him outside.
I told you he doesn't like me.
Finch brings Goodyear into the diner, leaving a dejected Jeff behind, though the robot consoles himself with some music and his first attempt to drive. And it doesn't go horribly wrong. He taps the van in front of them and lightly crashes into the diner as he backs up. At Jeff's reckless behavior, Finch chides him. Finch puts his hand in the sunlight and shows how his skin burns. He makes sure Jeff understands the danger to humans and dogs. "You have one job to do," he says. "Take care of this dog. It's the reason I made you." He adds, "I don't need companionship. I don't need a friend. I need you to do your job." Jeff apologizes profusely and they leave. In the RV, Jeff sits alone in the back, until Finch decides it's time to teach the robot how to drive. Jeff quickly gets the hang of it.
I am an excellent driver.
Well, don't get ahead of yourself.
They continue their journey. At night, they stop to make a campfire, and Jeff asks why they don't drive at night instead, avoiding the dangerous sun. Finch explains that UV radiation is predictable, but at night, they may run into starving, unpredictable people who will try to take what's theirs. Jeff asks why can't they trust other people? "Because trust will get you killed," Finch exclaims. "Trust no one." Finch coughs again and heads inside, though Jeff asks if he can stay outside a while, and he does, enjoying the fire and the aurora borealis above, now visible here thanks to the damaged ozone. The next day, Jeff finds Finch throwing up inside the RV, and he does his best to care for the ill man. That day, Jeff does the driving. He stops in Denver to look for food and medicine, bringing Dewey with him and doing his best to imitate what he observed in Finch's prior supply run. When Finch wakes to see the robots gone, he quickly dons his radiation suit and goes after them. In the store, Jeff finds plenty of medicine, but Dewey reaches for some treats and gets caught by a bear trap, damaging him badly. Finch finds the dying machine and switches him off. Then he finds Jeff, who can tell Finch is angry. Jeff defends himself, saying he took initiative, but Finch responds, "Initiative requires common sense. If you had any, you'd know there's something wrong with this place." They hear a noise and run back to the RV, while Finch coughs and his heart rate elevates. They drive off while Finch's suit shouts out heart rate and blood pressure warnings. Finch himself derides Jeff for walking into a trap and stupidly getting Dewey killed. Then he tells Jeff the new rule: no more mistakes, and passes out. He wakes at night to see a vehicle following them, so he shuts off their headlights, as Jeff can see in the dark. Then he tells Jeff to floor it. Jeff tries to warn him, but in his panic, Finch forces them to drive into an overpass they're too tall for, and the RV gets stuck. As the other vehicle approaches, Jeff ignores Finch's warnings and steps outside. Then he uses his strength to push the RV under the overpass, so they are hidden as the other vehicle passes by. Now safe, Finch reviews the damage to their vehicle and says, "We're not going to make it. It's over." And adds, "I'm too old, I'm too sick, I'm too tired, I'm done." Jeff tries to comfort him, but the broken Finch tells him to shut up, then heads into the RV. Jeff follows and tells Finch he believes in him. Finch tells him a story. After the solar flare, he went to a supermarket to scavenge. He hid when he saw a mother and her 9-year-old daughter holding a gun and a shopping cart filled with supplies. Then a man with a shotgun showed up to steal their things, and in the chaos, the woman and her child were killed, while Finch only cowered nearby. Then, in the little girl's backpack, he found a puppy, who he has cared for ever since. Hunger turned men into murderers, but made me a coward. How can you believe in that? Finch asks. The next day, they approach San Francisco, and while Finch sleeps, Jeff notices a postcard from San Francisco in the RV. On one side, he sees a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, and on the other, a note written from Finch's dad. An alert notes that UV radiation is low in the area, and a butterfly suddenly hits the RV's windshield. Jeff excitedly wakes Finch, and the man steps outside, feeling the sun for the first time since the world died. Later, Finch puts on a white suit, and they pull over for a leisurely meal. Jeff shocks Finch by telling him he had a dream. He saw the three of them on the Golden Gate Bridge together, like a painting that hasn't been yet. Finch is amazed, and Jeff asks, "I'm not a disappointment?" Finch assures him he is not, and apologizes for his earlier harsh treatment. Then Jeff asks about the postcard, and Finch tells him another story, how his father left before Finch was born, but at age 15, he received that postcard out of the blue, He planned on seeing the world, then meeting his dad. He bought the white suit and hoped to wear it when he finally did. Finch cries when he tells Jeff how, after the postcard, he never heard from his dad again. Jeff asks if he did see the world. Finch admits he hasn't seen much of it and regrets it. So, Jeff hastily stands up and says they need to hurry. They can get to San Francisco in just 18 hours and 33 minutes. "I'm dying, Jeff," Finch says. Then he asks Jeff to promise he'll take care of Goodyear after he's gone. Later, Finch watches proudly as Jeff plays fetch with the dog, but Goodyear continues returning the ball to Finch even if Jeff throws it. They are interrupted when Finch violently coughs blood onto his shirt and suit jacket. "Can I do something, Finch?" Jeff asks. "Jeff, you already have," he responds. They shake hands, but it quickly turns to an embrace. Finch heads into the RV to lie down, and Goodyear joins him. Outside, Jeff watches the sunset. Inside, Goodyear watches his owner die and howls as it grows dark. At night, Jeff and Goodyear hold a quiet funeral for Finch. Later, Jeff wonders what to do and asks himself what Finch would do. He'd feed the dog, Jeff decides, and Jeff does exactly that. They play fetch, and this time, Goodyear returns the ball to his new owner. They finish the drive to San Francisco and bury Finch by the Golden Gate Bridge. Standing atop it, Jeff takes in its beauty and looks at the many notes and photos left on the fence. Jeff wonders if any of the others who passed through are still around. "Well, there's only one way to find out," he tells Goodyear. Then, Jeff pins Finch's postcard to the fence next to all the other notes and heads off in search of survivors. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more.